Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to do the boys and girls. As always, we're both back. It's the 4th and 1 podcast, live from Lancaster and Lititz, Pennsylvania. It's your boy, Fancy Trash Can, as always, sitting next to my lovely co-host, Captain Boring. Sorry, I'm looking over at ESPN.com and I see Texas A&M played Texas State in men's basketball today. The only reason I bring that up is because they had less combined points than Houston and SMU 2 weeks ago. And the only reason I bring that up is, of course, I'm a little bit offended. Now, our uncle, Makai, you brought this up on the podcast, and I'm a little bit offended because, of course, I knew that Georgia Tech beat Cumberland, so badly, mind you, like you said, basically on the ground, so badly that Cumberland College, I don't even know if that college exists anymore. I'm going to have to look it up real fast. But they beat them so badly that they didn't play football anymore. So, yeah, I mean, as a trivia nerd, and obviously, shout out to the GOAT, Uncle Kevin, Dr. Kevin Kern, University of Akron, go Zips. Not really, they lose everything. Yeah, I mean, shout out to the GOAT, but come on. Come on, dude. Anyway,
I am pretty impressed that you listened to last week's episode, though.
I had to. I realized you listened to mine and Roberto's week. I needed to listen to yours because I had to come off of some of the things you said. First of all, before we get into breaking news, you called, and I almost made this a soundbite, but you called Joey DeVito, the quarterback for Illinois, Danny DeVito,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And mind you, you just threw his name in there. So Danny DeVito.
Yo,
and then you were just like, it had nothing to do with what you were talking about.
I said it with authority. Well, not many people's last name are DeVito, so the only real DeVito I know is Danny DeVito, the star of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
And apparently many other things. I'm trying to see if this was the same 19 Cumberland football team that lost to... No, it's a different one. There is a Cumberland Phoenix football. Cumberland College, Georgia. But before we do that, this was actually the transition I wanted to use. Breaking news, at least follow-up, a.k.a. follow-up from a couple weeks back. 7 Michigan State football players have been charged, and one of them will be facing a felony assault charge after the game 3 weeks ago now against Michigan after assaults in the Michigan tunnel. So just bringing that back up, wanting to, as we kind of go into this week, which I'm going to get into a little bit because I realize, Micaiah, is the rivalry on Fox or on ESPN this weekend?
The game is on Fox. The
game is on Fox. And here's the worst, and I'm specifically being a little bit vague. We're in the World Cup, which about a 7th to an 8th of the world watches.
Right.
Of the entire world. Of the entire, every living being on the planet. Sorry. I sigh because the biggest Michigan-Ohio State rivalry since 2006, where they were 1-2, is being overshadowed on the same platform that has them, because Fox has the rights to the World Cup.
Correct.
It's being overshadowed by the World Cup. The one time we get it and we can't even have it. And
well, is it, though, being overshadowed by the World Cup? Because the people who are interested in the game in America
according to Fox, it is. Fox hasn't been advertising this.
They did they did all last week, but they're not going to. Well, but they're not going to advertise it during the World Cup.
But nobody, if you say Fox Sports right now, they're going to be like, "Oh, you see Spain absolutely destroy Costa Rica 7-0 this morning." Like that's what you're going to be talking about if you're a Fox Sports person right now.
I think maybe around the world if you pick a random person, but I think but if you pick a random person in the United States and saying what's happened on noon on Fox on Saturday,
they probably say the World Cup.
At most, everyone's going to say Michigan, Ohio State.
Well, most all of our fans, which is really what matters. By the way, before we transition into...
I don't want to talk about the World Cup until the USA could actually not tie. Okay? The fact that soccer has ties.
Cumberland University is still around. I was just
okay, fantastic.
And then I was going to transition into
wake me up when soccer doesn't have ties, and maybe I'll watch it.
I wasn't going to talk about soccer at all.
It frustrates me.
Okay. First of all, the Wales game frustrates all U.S. fans. Okay. Second of all, to not talk about it, get over yourself. And then third of all, let's talk the game. The only game that matters in the history of the world to most people. It is the University of Michigan and their Wolverines taking on the Buckeyes of The Ohio State University. We have nationally ranked number 2 taking on nationally ranked number 3.
Hit them with the top 10.
Ohio State and Michigan, respectively, after a weird week where the SEC finally decided they only wanted to send one team to the college football. The top 10 looks a little bit different. Top 4 stay the same: Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU. Moving up one spot is LSU. They just need to win out. Shout out to Brian Kelly. Good job on them. We got a 1-loss USC team, a 2-loss Alabama team at 7, a 1-loss Clemson team at 8. Oregon moved up 3 spots somehow at 2 losses to 9, and Tennessee dropped down to 10. On the edge of the bubble there is Penn State and Kansas State. I don't know how Penn State is still at 11. Oregon State's back being ranked. Guys, what is it with Oregon State?
Listen, so me and Robert were talking about Oregon State. So Oregon State, it will enter the top 25 and then immediately lose. So they have entered the top 25, so it is about time they immediately lose. Listen,
this is the second time they've been in the top 25.
Correct. And every time they do, they just lose the following week. You brought it up there that the SEC finally decides they only want to send one school. Assuming that Georgia beats LSU, which I think they'll be heavy favorites in the SEC title game, the loss by Tennessee, which their secondary just decided not to show up. They allowed Spencer Rattler to look like the Oklahoma quarterback that he did when he wasn't giving his job away to Caleb Williams. They got blasted on Saturday Night Football by South Carolina, and so it benefits the loser of Michigan, Ohio State, because now the loser is sitting there assuming that USC loses another game, and if TCU loses another game, they only need one of those teams to lose a game, and there's a high likelihood that it's Georgia, the Big Ten champ, pick another random team, and then the loser of Michigan, Ohio State. The Big Ten is in a great position to do this. Should I say the Big Ten East? Because the Big Ten West is just an absolute travesty that is setting the game of college football back, and it's almost as unwatchable as soccer is at this point in time.
Hey, that's just unnecessary.
It's unnecessary, but I had to do it.
The largest sporting event in the world.
It's only because it's in the world.
Against the SEC, against a bunch of white guys in Iowa.
It's the largest sporting event in the world that only happens every 4 years. Oh, my goodness. Give me a break.
Yeah, you do this sort of thing every year. Okay, never mind. We're not getting into this argument. This is not a soccer podcast.
You know what? I'm just going to hammer soccer all podcast, and I don't even care. The bigger story coming out of the Tennessee game is that the Heisman frontrunner Hendon Hooker tore his ACL.
Yes.
I don't know if, and that's kind of breaking news. I don't know if people...
You put that on. It kind of got tucked ever since their loss. They tucked away. You put that on your personal Instagram. You did not put that on the 4th and 1 pod Instagram.
Okay. But
anybody who basically currently listens to us, shout out to all the Southerners who listen to us, I guess, because yours what make us go up. You give us the green arrows. For those of you who know what that's about. Anyway, Hendon Hooker tore, so he's out. He's gone.
He is gone. So I think most of the voters and most people around the country seem to think that this week, Stroud, Ohio State, Michigan, it's CJ Stroud and Blake Corum, the winner of that game, and the person who has the better performance in this game will win the Heisman. And I'm probably going to have to agree. Now, Simeon, you said it was a weird week. The top 4, for those of you who follow us on Instagram at 4th and 1 Podcast know this, won by a combined 22 points. Now, Ohio State ended up winning by 13. Again, it was Maryland was trying to score with 5 seconds left in their own end zone. He got sacked. While it was throwing, it was intercepted and returned. Ohio State, by that point, was only winning by 6 points. Georgia won by 10, but really controlled the entire game. Ohio State trailed at halftime and trailed most of the third quarter before they got control of that game against Maryland. Michigan and TCU TCU walked it off with a game-winning field goal, and Michigan kicked a field goal with 9 seconds left.
Basically walked it off.
Now, also in the Michigan game, Blake Corum didn't play the entire second half because what I thought was an ACL injury, but what Simeon, I don't know if you found anything. I'm beginning to think it's probably like a kneecap bruise.
So what I saw from, and these are independent doctors who heard this, and I forget who it is, so I can't give them credit for it. MCL sprain and bone bruise is what they're saying, which is kind of what you're saying, and is kind of what me and you were. We didn't watch this game together, but we watched it separately and we're texting. That's kind of what we thought. Once they said it wasn't an ACL, my first initial thought was that's an ACL tear.
Yep.
No one grabs their leg and then walks it off unless it's an ACL tear. So as soon as they said, and he came back in for that one play, I'm like, okay, so it's not an ACL tear, so how bad is it? Because it could be mild, where ice and rest, and he's going to be banged up, but he'll be back out for Ohio State. Or he's not, and I'm going to go off a little bit here. Or it could be nothing, where ice and ibuprofen and a light week of practice gets him 100%. You got Donovan Edwards, who Jim Harbaugh's been mum about. Fox is reporting that one of the offensive linemen, for his sake, in case this is true, I'm going to leave his name out, one of the Michigan offensive linemen alluded to the fact that Blake Corum won't be playing. Roberto is saying that it's a game-time decision. Those kind of two things line up from what I'm hearing and from what I've seen. Obviously, I dug into a lot of this at my lunch hour because I'm very concerned because we don't have Blake Corum. We don't right now have Donovan Edwards. Again, mum's the word from both sides, both Ohio State, for Crimson and Maize. And then we have two walk-ons, one of which dropped the pass and then saved our ass. In the game, I think his name's Gash, if I'm remembering correctly. So,
and another true freshman in C.J. Stokes, who is young, but is young.
Michigan is bottom 15 in pass attempts and top 10 in rushing attempts.
Yeah.
So this is a very one-sided. And hey, listen, I understand. Me and Makai don't necessarily like it. I don't know where he gets his offensive Madden skills, but I get mine from his philosophy. We're very balanced. We want to use the run game, set up the pass game, and vice versa. Once you get them both cooking, you're going to be good, and if you can't run it, you screen it, and you try other things. Michigan is very one-dimensional, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And we're coming into a game where Makai was telling me earlier, Jackson Smith-Njigba is also questionable or doubtful?
Robert seems to think he's doubtful.
Okay.
Also you said Crimson, it's Scarlet, actually.
Sorry.
On the Scarlet side, Myron Williams, who leads them in touchdowns, their running back is, I would assume, doubtful. He has not been healthy all year. Travion Henderson, the sophomore outstanding running back, didn't play in the second half of the Maryland game and just was not good. They do have a true freshman who looked good against Maryland. However, everyone looks good against Maryland's defense, considering Blake Corum ran for almost 300 yards on them single-handedly. So it's going to be who's the healthiest, and then it's going to come down to which side of what unit is better. Because if both defenses neutralize each other's running game and it comes down to passing game, Ohio State's going to walk away with this empty-handed. So it's going to come down to the front seven for Ohio State and the back 5 or 6 for Michigan. And whichever unit, and that's on defense, whichever unit plays better, that team's going to win that game. Now, if Corum and Edwards can't go, as you said, Simeon, Michigan's kind of up a creek without a paddle. I mean, Harbaugh and the offensive coordinators are going to have to pull a rabbit out of their hat in order to get them to be able to move the football.
I'm going to say something blasphemous here a little bit. There's almost, if you don't have a run game, a reason to put in Cade McNamara.
Well, Cade's done. He had ACL surgery.
Oh, I didn't know he tore his ACL.
Yeah. They don't have... I would agree with you that there is almost a reason to do that. However,
not that I don't believe in JJ. It's more of the fact that that's kind of Cade's forte, is doing this sort of thing and necessarily throwing the ball and getting the ball around. Now, to be said, that game is much different. That game is a 17-point win against Iowa, had two guys not dropped perfectly good passes. I would have caught those.
Oh, against Illinois, you mean,
against
on Saturday?
Illinois. Michigan against Illinois on Saturday.
And it wouldn't have come down to listen, Michigan's defense, I think, at this point is for real. Okay? Michigan's
They're
defense...
allowing 11 points a game. They're only allowing 79 rushing yards a game. That has to be ranked top in nation.
Michigan, now they allowed 140 on 30 attempts to Chase Brown, the nation's leading rusher in Illinois.
30 attempts.
But they didn't do anything in the second half. Yeah, they had that one touchdown in the second half on that 30-yard run. That's it. Michigan's defense really showed up, and J.J. McCarthy was not good. He was inaccurate. He had Colston Loveland 3 different times on the second to last drive to win the game. One, he had Colston Loveland, who is a true freshman tight end who looks outstanding, wide open in the end zone on the play that Isaiah Gash dropped, who was also, I feel like if he would have caught that, was going to score. But he had Colston Loveland wide open in the end zone. And then he had him another on the very next play on a crossing pattern. All he had to do is float the ball. JJ does not throw a lot with touch. He likes to drive the ball, which kind of works, but he needs a little more touch. Now, that one deep ball he did throw to Andrell Anthony, that Andrell Anthony had just go through his hands. Again, they're going to have to get the deep kind of passing game working, and they're going to have to rely on it a little bit more when they walk into the toilet seat that is the horseshoe.
Toilet seat's the right word, because they closed it off so it doesn't look like a horseshoe anymore.
It looks like a toilet seat.
It looks like a toilet seat now.
It looks like a toilet seat, and I don't mean any disrespect, but it does. And so it's going to be very interesting and very close.
Question for the class, well, not question, stats for the class. Out of 11 games, 648 plays, Michigan is ranked first in total defense.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a legitimate
Ohio
defense.
State is ranked 9th.
Yeah.
Mind you know what Michigan did against the second-ranked total defense?
Who was that, Iowa?
They beat them in Illinois.
Oh, in Illinois. True. But, again, Illinois' offense is not what's Ohio State's, probably top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look here for total offense. I'm
so,
on their defense.
But let me pose a question to the class.
Yeah.
As you said. Back in 2018, Michigan walked in with the number 2
Ohio
overall
State
rank.
is tied for 8th in total offense.
Okay.
Michigan's 23rd.
Okay, so they're both. Ohio State's a top 10 team.
Also, James Madison is on this list, by the way. Both lists,
James Madison is a 14-point favorite to 9-1 Coastal Carolina this weekend. So I would take Coastal Carolina plus points. But let me back up to 2018. 2018, Michigan walks in with the number 2 ranked defense, right?
Yeah.
They had come off wins, a blowout against Penn State. Stop me if you've heard this before. A blowout against Penn State, a game against Michigan State that should have been a blowout, but there was too many mistakes, so they won by 14. A blowout of Rutgers 2 weeks before, and then a close game the week before at home on senior night. They walked into Columbus with that, scheduled the number 4 ranked team in the nation, and then they allowed 62 points to the Buckeyes. That's eerily familiar to what this season is. Now, their rush defense or their rush offense is much improved, and I think their quarterback play, the problem with Shea Patterson that year was he turned the ball over. This year, J.J. McCarthy, so far, to this point, has not turned the ball over. It's going to be a great game. I'm going to be interested for 3.5 hours, unless if it is a 2018 situation where the game just is not close at all. But we're gonna figure it out. They're probably going to have to take on the winner of this game is going to have to take on an Iowa team that somehow is going to sleepwalk their way. Their offense does the bare minimum to get by, and yet they're going to end up in a Big Ten championship that they're just going to get.
Failing upwards comes to mind. For
my
Iowa.
goodness, that's the perfect statement. Sorry for that, Simeon. Failing, it's unbelievable. Now, if they lose and Purdue wins, then Purdue's in, which I think would be very interesting because I like Purdue better than Iowa. I hate teams that walk backwards, that moonwalk, but still reach the finish line. That's what I was doing. They're moonwalking, but they're still reaching the finish line.
Oh,
how?
And mind you, technically both Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin still have a chance to get into.
Technically, yes.
Because Purdue and Iowa would have to lose, and then I'm not sure what it is, but I'm not going into that.
It's a whole big mess.
By the way, Michigan, I just want to keep going back to this, 34th in red zone defense. Ohio State, not ranked.
In red zone defense?
In red zone defense. And the only reason I bring that up is just it shows me for the same exact reason Michigan hasn't played anybody, Ohio State hasn't played anybody, which makes this is you're going to know if this is a good game within the first 5 minutes of the game.
Well, correct. And I liked your point that you texted me earlier. If Michigan scores on their opening drive of the game, you know it's going to be a good game.
Because they script, and why that is they script their first drive. So if you can score on your first drive, and mind you, they have out of, I think, 10 out of 11 of the games that they've played. Mm-hmm. Didn't they punt against Illinois? No, they scored against Illinois. That was the one, besides Jake Moody just kicking everything with his weird-ass helmet that makes him look like a chipmunk. Sorry. I bring that up because who was I watching? It was Michigan. Michigan made 2 or 3 stops last week in the red zone against Iowa, against Illinois.
Yeah.
And that's huge when you're this thing has the chance of getting ugly real fast.
Sure.
Of looking a lot like it was last week. And I think I cut you off more about things looking ugly, which is the Big Ten West, which is just an absolute, besides Vanderbilt somehow having a 500 record or whatever they had a conference winning streak. Vanderbilt had a conference winning streak.
They do. Of 2 games, they beat Florida.
And I don't hate on Florida at all. We'll get into the SEC because the SEC needs their own thing here in a second. But I don't.
Of the top 4, right? Because everyone's like, oh, Michigan's fake, Michigan's fake, Michigan's fake. Who's faker, Michigan or TCU? Because I feel like TCU is that team, like the Auburn of 2014, where they have all these great finishes and it's a great Cinderella story and it's awesome. And TCU's a good football team with a good offense, and it's good. But then they play a Georgia or an Ohio State that can finish games and have been there before, and they just get smacked in the face. Like, how often can TCU win these one-score games week after week after week?
So Texas was a one-score game, a touchdown game. Texas Tech was a 10-point game, as was West Virginia, as was Kansas State. Literally, they're basically 3 10-point games, a 7-point game, and then you were right about Baylor, a kickoff.
And they trailed in the second half of most every game this season.
Yeah. I mean, here's the deal. First of all, congrats to Sonny Dykes. Well, obviously, one of the things I'm planning on doing is we're going to cover most of, everything conferences. Go conference by conference wrap-up of the year. Then we'll go coaches, and we'll do a bunch of other stuff to try to milk college football as long as we can. All top 3 teams look fake to me. The top 2 through 3.
2 through 4.
Here's the 2 through 4. Here's the issue. Who's gonna beat Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ohio State has the best shot just because they do have a
but not
good
if half of their offense is injured.
Well, that is true. Again, I think it's very discouraging that Georgia won by 10 to Kentucky, right? And people say, oh, Georgia only won by 10. They controlled that game. There was at no point in that game that I was watching where I was like, you know what? Georgia might lose this game. No point did I feel that. And Georgia, and that's how Kirby Smart, he's like, they asked him at halftime of that game, listen, what do you do to get your guys to play hard, right, in the second half? Because we feel like there's lackluster. And he looked at the sideline reporter. He's like, we're playing hard. We just got to execute in the red zone and finish drives. Listen, my guys are playing hard. We're good. When you're up 6-0 at halftime to a team that you're a 22-point favorite, and you're just like, we're playing hard, we're good, and your coach has that much confidence in you, it should be, Georgia is the new Alabama. Heard it here first, 4th and 1 podcast, mark it down, click mark this, because Georgia is the new Alabama. They're about to go on a 10-year dynasty run of every other year at worst winning the national championship.
We'll cover that when the SEC. I'm not going to touch that with for perfectly good reference, since it's Thanksgiving is tomorrow, with a 39.5-foot pole. I'm not touching that this week. I'm not doing it. That's a Grinch reference for those of you, because I have to prove I'm smarter than you guys. That's a Grinch reference, and my wife has already set up our Christmas tree. But that's beside the point. I'm not touching the SEC. I know it gets us clicks. I understand. Well, since we're here, by the way, I just wanted to say this. I wanted to say these 2 things. I say since we're here, and then I go take another.
You say you're not touching it, then you say since we're here, let's talk about it.
Well,
anyway.
we're gonna touch it. We're gonna touch on it anyway, and I feel like we should finish the thought. Okay,
no, touch it all over anyway.
Remind me, Pac-12 and AAC. So we're gonna go to the SEC. We don't know. I watch the SEC shorts, which is great, and then there's this other guy who does recaps as the different teams. And he gives all the different SEC teams' personalities.
Roll call?
I think so. Yeah, it's like the bigger guy.
Yeah, with Mitchell's his last name? Mike Mitchell,
yeah,
something like
so.
that. Yes, it's hilarious.
He's hilarious.
Yes.
He's great. To me, with how spectacular the SEC has been, they have underperformed.
Matt Mitchell's his name.
Thank you. And that's saying something, because by all metrics, the SEC has overperformed this year. But their results have been They have the only reason LSU is ranked number 5 right now is because they beat Alabama, and if they win against Georgia, the committee wants to put an SEC team in, and they don't want to have any question.
Well, it's funny that you say that it looks like they've underperformed, but they've overperformed. This is what college football is supposed to look like
by statistics
when it's balanced. The SEC used to be Georgia and Alabama and everybody else, and it didn't matter because those two teams were the two teams every year, right? For a good 5 or 6 years now, it's been that way. Now, Tennessee's good, so Alabama just can't sleepwalk through that game, right? Mm-hmm. Florida's half decent, and I only like what Billy Napier's doing. No matter the 500 record, they're going to get to a bowl game, and that's all important in your first year.
Yeah.
So the East is way tougher now. The West, you have Lane Kiffin, the Lane train. Whether he stays at Ole Miss or goes to Auburn, no one knows, but he's probably staying in the SEC West, right? And then also in the West, you have Arkansas that's not a tough out. They almost beat LSU. You have Brian Kelly up and coming. So now the SEC is actually balanced, unlike the second best conference in the country, which is the Big Ten, which is 4 teams, and that's it. 4 teams and everybody else. It's 3.5 depending on how you
plus
grade.
The prison.
You could say 2 plus the prison, plus the prisons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a dated reference.
It is a dated reference, but it was funny. Anyway, this is what it's supposed to look like. Like the Pac-12 is actually what college football is supposed to look like. And
Texas A&M and Vanderbilt are on the same level. Let's put it that way.
Well, and Texas A&M is actually a decent coach, and the boosters staying out of it away, and so is Auburn, away from actually...
Auburn's ranked above Texas A&M currently.
Well, as they should be. Texas A&M is trash.
Well, I'm just saying, right now, Auburn
fans were doing a relay, like a 4x1 across the bleachers with their shirts off, okay, at the game.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what's going on there. I'm looking right now at the standings. You're 100% right. Auburn is clearly a coach away, which they should have kept their coach, but that's me and Micaiah being pesky about
Brian
culture.
Yeah.
Arkansas, who knows what Arkansas and Kentucky are missing. I'm going to go over the same list you went over. Mississippi State is, I guess, needs to get off the mushrooms that they're on. I'm not 100% sure what Mike Leach is doing.
Mike Leach is a solid coach, not an elite coach.
Yeah, but, they have Mississippi State there. You got Ole Miss. You don't know what, like you said, the Lane Train is doing. Alabama, LSU. That's the West. Mind you, basically, if this was a good year, if this year would have gone the way that we thought it was going to, it would have been Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Auburn, Mississippi State. That would have been your West division from top to bottom. And
every team would have been a 500 or above.
Exactly. That's what we were expecting. But right now we have, Auburn is 5-6. So we have, of those, I'm doing quick, 7 teams. How many are 7? 5 of them are bowl eligible, and only 3 of them are above 500 in the conference. In the conference. They don't play just West and East. I mean, they play both West and East. Sorry. Yeah. They don't just play West. So when we are like, hey guys, look, Vanderbilt's one win away from being bowl eligible, and they're playing Tennessee, who apparently is beatable now.
Without Hendon Hooker, unfortunately, yes.
What Tennessee is checkering, which is Penn State's, which is the whiteout, are checkering Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Because they're afraid.
Taking a second check. They're doing a second whiteout because they're afraid they're going to lose to Vanderbilt.
Well, they're afraid that they won't have a turnout because now their college football playoff hopes are gone.
Because they might lose to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, okay. Because they might lose to Listen.
Guys, we haven't even talked about Mizzou. Everybody else has been spectacularly failing or failing upwards.
How bad
Missouri's regular failureness, which is they're pretty on par. They're 5-6. That's pretty standard for
Mizzou might make a bowl game. That's pretty impressive.
We've just decided to forget about them because Texas A&M's 1-6 in the conference.
It's where the money is, it's where the storylines are, and it's whoever has the big mouth. And Jimbo ran his mouth in the offseason and now and now this is what came of it. And so
also,
if you run your mouth, ESPN's going to pay attention.
I'm pissed off.
Why are you angry?
I'm pissed off because the Big Ten isn't able to capitalize on this. The
Well, they
ACC
might
isn't
be.
doing anything, guys. Here's the thing: Pac-12. You know how I'm like, why is Oregon State ranked again?
Right.
An unnecessarily ranked Oregon State. Guess who they're playing this weekend?
Oregon.
Yeah, they wanted to beef up Oregon's resume in case USC fails.
Against a beefed up ranking of Notre Dame.
Exactly. So that's why Oregon State, because the Pac-12 can't do anything, the Big Ten is dying for USC and UCLA to get in so that they can restructure the divisions so that they'll actually be weighted correctly.
Which now it sounds like UCLA might not even come.
The ACC is dying because they're one team, and their savior and their Jesus Christ and Manny Diaz did not do what Manny Diaz was supposed to do his first year.
Mario Cristobal, you're thinking Manny Diaz.
Manny Diaz was the coach. He's now the defensive coordinator.
Still, the point is about Manny Diaz was not, but no, I get your point, and I understand why you're frustrated, but honestly, the Big Ten, the only way that the Big Ten can fix this is that if they get rid of the divisions and go to the top 2 winning percentage. The problem with that is the Big Ten knows it's going to be Michigan and Ohio State 9 times out of 10.
This is
two straight weeks.
I was talking about this with my brother-in-law. Shout out to Matt. He doesn't listen to this, but I'll give him a shout out anyway. He's the third Penn State fan in my life. There's you, then there's Matt. There's you, me, and Matt. Those are what I have. I got one on both sides. We can talk about it. The only way that they can restructure the division is if they split up Michigan and Ohio State right now without UCLA and.
Correct. But the problem is the Big Ten won't do that because, like I said, is they do not want Michigan and Ohio State in back-to-back weeks. So that either means you have to move the game, which they're not going to do because it's been in that time slot and that weekend forever.
Right.
Or you got to add more teams and you got to wait. And that's what they're going to do. And speaking of the team that they're going to add, how is a one-loss USC team who's played the Pac-12 schedule that they've played, which is actually half decent. The Pac-12 is very good. Ranked behind a 2-loss LSU team who lost to Florida State, basically at home. Don't get me with this neutral site BS because it's not. When it's in the South, when it's played in Louisiana. They lost that game basically at home. And then they got railroaded at actual home to Tennessee. So USC looks good. If USC wins out, they are in. If TCU wins out, they are in, which basically means Ohio State, Michigan is an elimination game. We all know that. Here's my interesting question, Simeon. As USC looks like Oklahoma, all offense, no defense. Oregon fends off Utah. If Oregon beats Oregon State this week, they play USC in the Pac-12 championship game. USC loses this week to Notre Dame or next week to Oregon, which I think there's a high likelihood of them losing one, right?
If not both.
So it's a 2-loss Pac-12 champ. Either way, right?
Yeah.
TCU loses one game. Let's just say they lose this week, right? Then beat a Kansas State team.
Very possible that they might lose this week. They're
Correct.
playing Iowa State.
Correct. Clemson wins out. They're 1 loss.
Yep.
The loser, Michigan, let's just assume Michigan loses because I think even if Ohio State loses, they have a better shot getting in because of their offense and defense. Michigan loses this week, right? Georgia runs the table, beats LSU, so LSU is out. You are now have Georgia and Ohio State. Who are you putting in those final 2 spots?
Well, let me give you this even one. Let's say Clemson loses.
Right.
To
Okay.
North Carolina.
Okay.
North Carolina wins out.
Right. Okay.
And beats Clemson.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah, dude,
This is what I'm agreeing with you.
Let's just say Oregon beats USC, so it's a 2-loss Oregon team. Does Oregon get in? I think Michigan is in at that point.
There's a reason that Oregon moved up after losing the game.
Well, no, they lost the game and then they won last week. They beat Utah last week by 3 at home.
Yeah, sorry.
That's why my note says Oregon fends off Utah.
I'm sorry. Okay, listen, Tulane lost the game and moved up this week, okay? It wouldn't have surprised me that Tulane lost to Navy by 3.
No, UCF lost to Navy.
What did Tulane do this week?
I think
They
Tulane
beat SMU. I'm getting everybody confused.
So Tulane, and this will be...
Tulane's a 9 and... Yeah. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. We're not... Texas is ranked again, too. So who the F knows what's going on?
It'll be a very interesting...
I think they should just put in Penn State and Louisville, just for kicks and giggles. That's what they should do. Listen, I don't know. It shouldn't be. They should say, you know what?
In that scenario,
I wouldn't. I would say we're not putting 2 and 4 together. It's just going to be a national championship between Ohio State and Georgia.
It's just
That's
the BCS.
honestly what I would do. F that, we're doing the BCS.
But that's
None
no
of you
fun.
Other nerds
You're not
gets
playing the
to do
game.
it.
You're not playing the game. Play the game.
Okay.
Play the podcast game. Pick 2 teams. In the scenario I gave you, pick 2 teams.
LSU lost, right?
LSU lost to Georgia.
TCU lost to 1 loss or 2 loss?
1 loss TCU. Let's say in the Big 12 title game to Kansas State.
Clemson 1 out?
Clemson lost to North Carolina.
And remind me...
Oregon beat USC in the Pac-12 title game.
Oregon TCU.
So you would leave out Michigan. Michigan close loss.
Yeah, because I'm a masochist. That's the only reason.
Okay, I don't know what that word means, but okay.
I enjoy pain, basically, is what I'm saying.
It would be that scenario. I'm rooting for this scenario.
Direct definition of masochism. So people who are smarter than me, I understand.
No
the
one
actual
cares.
definition
Move
of
on.
masochist. The issue that I'm having is, yes, 2-loss team looks good to Michigan, but we've had this conversation every effing year that we've done this in the college football playoff era, and we all know the rules. A conference champion gets in over a non-conference champion.
Right, but TCU would still be a non-conference.
I say that, so switch out TCU with North Carolina.
I can't agree. I just hope that it's a lot of fun. Listen, I'm hoping for this scenario. I honestly think
a one-loss Ohio State team gets in over anybody else, but a one-loss Michigan team doesn't.
That's what I was telling Robert. The Big Ten has a better shot of getting 2 teams in if Michigan beats Ohio State on Saturday.
R-rated. Michigan hasn't sucked enough dick in order to get into the playoff with 1 loss.
Their out of conference schedule, as I'm going to try to save this, their out of conference schedule is rather weak. Yes,
I thought mine was pretty good and funny. I was expecting you to laugh.
Well, you know,
but I don't mean to be rude. Ohio State's the hot girl of the Big Ten.
Yeah, the 5'4", hot, skinny blonde. Yeah, and Michigan's the girl,
or the 6'3" hunk with abs, if you want us to be politically correct.
Sure. And Michigan is the
Dirty
hefty
blonde blue eyes to put that in to finish the.
Never mind. Okay, let's just move on. This week is first of all, Black Friday football is the superior football day.
We're recording this on the 23rd, so happy Thanksgiving. I hope you all had
happy Thanksgiving. The Egg Bowl was on by the time everyone else listens to this. Well, maybe I'll post tomorrow, depending on how this goes. The Egg Bowl was on last night. So that's Ole Miss, Mississippi State. That's always entertaining. Black Friday football, it contains a basically win and go home via Tulane and Cincinnati. Texas must win also on Friday night. Florida, Florida State, that great rivalry is renewed on Friday. Listen, Black Friday football is amazing. It's right after the holiday. I have off.
I don't.
So that sucks for you. That's awesome for me. It's going to be great. A lot of people are starting to set up Christmas time. It's the holidays. It's turkey. It's leftover turkey. It's leftover taters. It's leftover pie. It's all good in the hood. And then it gets you set up for Saturday, which also doesn't disappoint. It's going to be a great weekend of college football in the final weekend of college football. By the way, are we going live on Championship Saturday?
I think so.
Because
we have no idea.
We
Ask me
probably
again.
should.
Probably. We probably will. I'm not
It
saying
was
we probably
it was
should.
a
We probably
big
will.
success.
It was a big success. Miami of Ohio beat Ball State by a point yesterday. And Bowling Green lost to Ohio in the MAC. I actually want to look here real quick, if you guys don't mind a little bit of a...
I think that means Ohio's going to go to the MAC championship.
It does. That puts Ohio 7-1 in the conference. In the... I don't know how they do their standings. And then they'll be facing, assuming that... who's Toledo playing? I saw Toledo's playing somebody tomorrow. They're playing Western
I think
Michigan.
Toledo's already in.
So, assuming... No, Toledo needs to win tomorrow, and Eastern Michigan needs to lose.
Oh, all
And
right.
Eastern Michigan is playing Central Michigan. So there's a lot of... So, Central Michigan's playing Eastern Michigan. Western Michigan's playing Toledo. So they're all very close to each other.
Yeah, they could
On
literally
Friday,
just drive to
in
each other's
in the-
stadiums and watch.
Yeah, in the MAC. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything else. I wanted to rant about something today. I'll find something to get mad about. Georgia takes on Georgia Tech, 12 a.m. on ESPN. You're shaking your head.
I'm
Why are
shaking
you
my
shaking
head
your
because why even mention it? It doesn't matter. Just mention the
we
good
mentioned
games.
the ranked games. I'm gonna skip the one, the Clemson, South Carolina. That's a rivalry game. Do you think that could be an upset?
It's now very interesting. I don't think so because South Carolina has this tendency. They have the Oregon State tendency to be really hot and then really bad. Spencer Rattler picked a really good night to be really hot. Also, Tennessee's defense is really porous. I've been trying to tell people that for quite some time now. That Tennessee, while their offense was amazing, their defense was not. Clemson's defense is legitimately good. Like, say what you will about DJ Uyunglele, like, Clemson's defense is very good. So, no, I don't think South Carolina has much of a shot.
Also, just have to give a shout-out here. Guess who's 9-2 this year? With their two losses being to number 21 at the time, Texas, and at the time, number 24, Houston.
I don't know who.
The UTSA mother-flipping Roadrunners.
Meep. Good for them, man. Back-to-back years. So that head coach is probably going to get a coaching gig, Power 5.
For sure. They've won Conference USA. They're at the top of the standings, obviously they're undefeated, assuming that they beat UTEMP, which they will.
So they can go back-to-back then.
They're probably gonna go back-to-back after this week. They'll have a divisional game the weekend following. But yeah, they'll be back-to-back Conference USA champs. They'll be 9-2 with two really good losses on their resume. I just wanted to pull that out, and I get 14 cents because their over/under was 7.5 games.
And you nailed it.
And I nailed it. You said James Madison going over to the Fun Belt. James Madison is playing Coastal Carolina. They are 14-point favorites down in Harrisonburg. This is now, I think technically Coastal Carolina definitely wins the division with a win, and then James Madison has an ability, I believe, to win the division if they win. So they kind of got off shaky, but Coastal Carolina basically winning their in. They'll take on most likely Troy,
but it doesn't matter because Coastal Carolina can't go anyway.
Did they can't go to what?
It's because they just moved up
Oh,
from the
they didn't.
FCS.
They had to. Yeah.
They're on a
Wait, no.
probationary period. Yeah.
No, James Madison can't go. Coastal
Right.
Carolina. So
Correct.
Coastal Carolina will go anyway.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Coastal
Cool.
Carolina's
Well,
in. Yeah.
Good for them.
Which may be why that's why they're 14.5-point favorites, because maybe they're going to rest their starters. I don't know. Like maybe Coastal Carolina is going to rest their starters. I don't know.
Possible. Alabama is playing in the Iron Bowl, 3:30 CBS. They're taking on Auburn. They'll probably win that game. Would that put them at 10 wins?
Who? I'm sorry.
Alabama.
Alabama, yes. They've
That
only
will put them at
lost
10
two.
wins,
Yep.
but yeah, they'll miss their over-under was 10.5. Makai told you to pound that. He was wrong.
I
Even
was
with the
wrong.
win, that won't get them at 10.
I honestly thought it was an undefeated season coming from Alabama, but
honestly did too.
their lack of wide receivers hurt them.
Oregon State, 3:30 ABC. Not much. You obviously got Notre Dame, USC.
And then you have the entire Big Ten West, which you got to pay attention to, because you got Iowa and Nebraska. If Iowa wins, they're in. If Iowa,
the funny thing is none of them are playing each other.
Yeah.
Besides Northwestern and Illinois.
If Iowa loses, Purdue has to win to get in. If both of them lose and Illinois wins, then Illinois is in, I believe. So it's again, it's very entertaining. You got to dig for some storylines. They're just not right on the surface. If you've been following along with this podcast,
Kansas State. 8
Kansas
p.m. on Fox.
Kansas State. Again, Kansas State, assuming Texas wins, Kansas State has to win to get in the Big 12 title game. I think it becomes a very interesting, Simeon, if Texas wins and Kansas State loses, which is a possibility, and then it's the rematch of Texas, who their offense did not perform very well. If you listened to the podcast last week, which you did, I told you all about that, against TCU. And again, I think at this point, if you're a Michigan fan, you got to root for some chaos to happen behind you in the standings.
Makai, give me the... Oh, my gosh. Do you know... Okay. Before we go, I know what one of your 5 games is.
Sure.
So don't give me that one.
Okay.
I want to finish on that.
Okay.
Because I want you and I to talk about it and break it down. This is how shoehorned in the College Football Committee, and when I say shoehorn, I mean the Pac-12 conference. 6 of their teams are ranked.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's a good conference.
It's not.
It is. It's better than the Big 12.
I'd rather watch Big 12 football than Pac-12 football.
I disagree. Have you seen the offenses out west? Did you watch a single minute of that USC UCLA game?
No, because it was
my
late.
God! Caleb Williams was outstanding, my dude. Outstanding. He almost threw for 500 yards. Yes, granted, the defense is out west. Probably they're about as sturdy as the wall behind me, right? If you make one juke
It's
move,
actually a pretty sturdy wall behind you.
you're going for a touchdown. Okay? Right? I understand that. These offenses are amazing. Oregon is averaging like 550 yards of offense a game. Their defense, again, is trash. It's outstanding, high-quality football. Meanwhile, you have the fumbling and bumbling of the Big 12, which Texas should just railroad everyone. That's not happening. TCU is undefeated, but somehow kicking field goals and getting it. Again, I like TCU. Oklahoma is just utter garbage. Iowa State is a great defensive team, but doesn't have an offense to save its life.
Here's the issue. I'm going to cut you off because you need to be cut off in this specific rant. Normally, your rants are pretty good, and
I'm so flabbergasted by the fact that you don't think the Pac-12 is good.
Because the Pac-12 is somehow more top-heavy than the Big Ten. I'm not saying
it has
not
4
good.
teams at the top.
Yeah, 6 of them, and they're all ranked.
So
you have half of their conference is good. The other half should be playing in the FCS.
Yeah, and the Big Ten isn't. Big Ten this year has 3 good teams.
Northwestern should be the only Big Ten school playing in the FCS.
The entire Big Ten West should be playing in the FCS. The atrociousy of the offensive football on that side of the conference is just devastating.
My wife is saying that we're being too loud.
Well, your wife needs to relax, much like the Duke.
Listen, hey, listen. That's what I'm telling her. That's my job.
That's my job to tell her that. The Duke is sleeping. He is unfazed.
Good for the Duke, man, that he is sleeping. He had a fun time. I saw him on the podcast last week. Okay, so with that being said, I am suspending my picks for this week just because there's a lot going on, and I'm really invested in the Ohio State-Michigan game. Also, just for everybody to say, Virginia Tech is canceled. I don't know if they canceled that officially last week or not. I don't remember that.
I think the beginning of this week they canceled it, yeah. But neither team were going to make a bowl game, so
yeah, it's not a big deal. Just T's and P's, obviously, again with that. And I don't know what it is with people getting shot in Virginia. There was another shooting in a Walmart of all places last night in the Virginia Beach area. I know 6 confirmed dead, and about the same in the hospital. So if you're in Virginia, y'all need to pray more, I guess.
Faith, family, and friends, everybody. Faith, family, and friends.
But not football if you're a Virginia Tech or Cavalier fan. So
you just had to do it. You just had to do it.
I did. It's 12 o'clock, number 8, Clemson takes on South Carolina. I bet that's one of your games.
It isn't. You want me to run through my 5?
I do. I want you to run through your 4, and then we'll take on the 5th. The one that we actually come here for.
Alrighty. Well, Friday, it's going to be a great day. Getting you started off at noon. Number 19, Tulane, goes to Nippert Stadium. Now you messed up my flow.
I'm sorry. I was trying to add to it.
Okay. All right. Number 19, Tulane, goes to Nippert in Cincinnati, Ohio, to take on number 24, Cincinnati. Listen, the AAC is working real weird this year. The winner hosts the AAC championship game next week. The loser, likely out entirely. Okay, so you're either hosting or you're gone. Now, there are scenarios where both teams can still make it, but they need other things to happen. I went through the scenarios. I'm just as confused as anyone else, so we'll cover that next week if the time comes. Tulane wants to run the football and play defense, okay? And that's what they've done all year, and that's what they're pretty good at. Ben Bryant, the quarterback for Cincinnati, he has a foot injury. He's probably going to be a game-time decision for Cincinnati, which isn't good. I don't love that. Cincinnati has to have one of the longest home winning streaks in the entire country at 32 games. So that's very interesting as well. Cincinnati, this can host their 3rd straight AAC title game with a win. I don't think they get it. I like the underdog Tulane. You take them plus 1.5. What you like?
It's 1 right now.
Oh, it's 1.
If it changed,
I think you take Tulane.
Over under is 46.
You take the over
for that.
Yeah.
I'll be taking a pick with you. How about that?
Alrighty. So I'm gonna skip the game. Number 9, Oregon travels to Corvallis to take on number 21, Oregon State. Listen, Oregon wins, they face USC next week. If they lose, again, a whole bunch of other things happen, and we'll cover that next week if that happens. Oregon has been living on the edge with their pass defense, and it's really been and it's been struggling of late. Lost to Washington, 3-point win to Utah last week. The couple weeks before, it's been close. They've been giving up lots of yardage. Oregon State is a very balanced team. They run and throw for 200 yards a game. Can Oregon control this game? Can Oregon win this rivalry that is no longer called the Civil War because war, I guess, is not woke?
Because that's I'm okay with that one.
Okay, well,
Let's
I'm
just
not.
put it that way.
Well, whatever. Listen, Bo Nix has got to control this game. They've got to run the football. They've got to leave everything out there because you can't let this opportunity to face USC, which I think they beat USC if they get there. I like Oregon to cover -3.5. Bo Nix and this offense have just been so explosive, but I think it's actually the running game of Oregon and the trio of running backs they have up there in Eugene that get the job done. What's your pick there?
Oregon. Well, it's definitely Oregon. You can't take them you can't take Oregon State plus the points. However, Oregon State is 9-2 against the spread. Over unders 58.5. I'm gonna take in this one out of those three. I'm gonna take the under on that game.
Okay, under. Simeon has it. Game number 3 is number 15 Notre Dame going to USC. This game was not interesting in early September. Notre Dame was 0-2. Ever since that game, Notre Dame is 8-1 and is rolling. Now, they have a bad loss to Stanford, but they have a great win against Clemson. This has college football implications written all over it, especially for USC. Okay, Notre Dame has been on a tear. I mentioned their winning streak of late. Notre Dame's a real defense. They allow 317 yards per game, and they can run the ball at 190 rush yards per game. That's what they want to do. They want to run the ball and play great defense. Marcus Freeman has this team rolling and believing. This is the best defense USC has faced the entire year. Now, granted, this is the best offense Notre Dame has faced the entire year. However, they say defense wins championships. I'm still waiting to see that in college, but I will believe it for this week. I like Notre Dame to win this game. On the road, their defense travels. It confuses Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams. They get frustrated because they aren't running the ball well. They're relying on the passing game. So you take Notre Dame plus the 5.5. You're gonna
This one's hard for me, just because of how potent USC's offense is. And while I haven't watched them, I know that they're good. 7-4 against the spread, -5.5. Guys, listen, USC's favored in this one. I still think it's going to be an upset. I do agree with Micaiah. I think that what's his last name? Marcus
Freeman.
The coach Freeman. I think Marcus Freeman has a good team humming here. Good for him. Let's hope he brings in a really nice offensive coordinator for next year. But I'm going to take USC minus the points. I just think this is going to be a close game.
How is Notre Dame going to get the upset, but USC is going to cover?
No, USC is not going to cover. USC minus the points.
Right. So USC is going to win by more than 5.5. How have we gone 13 weeks and you still don't know how this works?
Because I'm taking the points away from them. Minus just my okay. USC plus the points.
No, it's Notre Dame plus the points. Are you taking
But
USC?
how is it not opposite then? How is it not USC minus 5.5?
Because whatever score, right? If it's 10-10.
Okay, I got it.
Oh my goodness.
I understand what I did wrong here. Okay, I'm sorry.
Taken away from my top 5 mojo. I have one segment the entire show.
Notre Dame plus the points.
Oh my goodness. I'm marking this clip and I'm going to post this on Instagram and
under
embarrass
2.
You. So
under 64.5 points.
Okay, whatever. No one cares. The final game is unranked Kansas going to Kansas State. Yes, it's rivalry weekend. Okay, that's what they call this weekend. All these games are rivalry games. Why am I bringing up unranked Kansas against Kansas State? One of 2 reasons. First, Kansas State wins. They are in. They might be in even before this if Texas loses. However, which brings me to the second reason. I just like talking about Kansas. Listen, they are the story of college football. It's between, it is them. They haven't been this good since 2008. What is that, like 14 years? Okay, this is incredible. They've had a great season. However, their defense is just absolute garbage. They're allowing 30-plus points to teams. Kansas State has been allowing points also recently on defense. It's a rivalry game. I expect a lot of points. I do expect Kansas State to come out the victor in this, but the over 62.5 seems just a tad low. I think this game's up around 66, 67. You also could take Kansas plus the points because I think it's close, but I like Kansas State to win this game and get another shot at TCU next week. So Kansas has a great season. They are bowl eligible. They've been a fun team to watch all year. Go watch them on Saturday night one last time before their bowl game. Take on a Kansas State team and be prepared to be entertained.
Yeah, I'm with Micaiah. Kansas lost 55-14. The over/under 62. If there's one game that is going to go comfortably over 62 points this weekend, it's going to be this one. Kansas plus the points.
Oh, dude, I love it. And I would take that too. So I absolutely love it because I could see Texas getting in. So I absolutely love it. Again, I'm rooting for Kansas, but I'm picking Kansas State because that's what my brain goes to. Now, we will talk.
Wait. I thought that Kansas can still lose, but they're getting 11.5 points. So as long as they lose by less than 12 points,
correct,
they win.
Correct.
Against the spread. Okay.
Correct.
We're good.
You win money.
I think Kansas State. I'm just betting. I
Right.
think Kansas State wins this
Correct.
game.
Right.
I'm with you.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Just making sure.
And then finally, it is the game. This is the game that everyone circled on their calendars, Labor Day weekend, because this is what we hoped that Alabama and Georgia would be. That's not going to be. And every other big-time matchup that we had circled on the calendar, this one actually came into fruition. It is 11-0 Ohio State and 11-0 Michigan. Number 3 Michigan goes to the horseshoe. Listen, winner takes the East. Loser has to wait and see. We covered that early in the podcast. This is a game of injuries at this point in time, recording this on a Wednesday. By the time you listen to it on a Thursday or a Friday, is Corum healthy enough to play? Is Travion Henderson healthy enough? Is Myron Williams healthy? Is Jackson Smith and Jigba? Is Blake Corum? Is Luke Schoonmaker? Is literally Michigan's offensive line? Is the secondary for Ohio State? Game of injuries. There's been some injuries on Ohio State secondary, so that is what it is.
No, and that's not why I'm making that face.
Why are you
I have
making
to cut you off? Because no one on the Michigan's line is injured besides the one dude who's been injured for half the season.
They did have another 2 injuries last week as well.
That has been literally nowhere.
Oh, well, they mentioned
I've read quite a few articles.
Okay, well then I guess they're healthy enough and they're going to go. Listen, their offensive linemen. Which unit plays better wins the game? The front 7 for Ohio State, 4 defensive, that is the defensive linemen and the linebackers, or the secondary, the back 5 for Michigan. That's all the corners and the safeties. Whichever unit plays better is going to win. However, if this comes down to being a passing game, Ohio State walks away. I don't think that's the case in this one. I'm bringing this back to an 0-6 type of game where it was a 3-point close loss by Michigan. Michigan is getting 7.5. I want, with all of my heart, to pick Michigan. Elite programs win back-to-back games against their rivals in big-time top 10, top 5 showdowns. Great programs win every other year. And I think Michigan is trending to be a great program, so they get every other year, they get the victory. I don't think they're elite yet. Maybe come Saturday at 3:30, 4 o'clock, they're elite. I don't know. I'm excited. I'm going to be locked in until I'm not, until Michigan forces me to turn this game off. I like Ohio State to win, throw up in my mouth noise, but I like Michigan to keep it close. So it's Michigan plus the points, Ohio State to win, and then you Michigan fans wait and see, because I think there is still a shot for them to make the college football play off.
So here's the deal. We saw last week, obviously, Harbaugh always likes to give a little blurb. He really doesn't like to give a little blurb, but then he lets his players talk. J.J. McCarthy and oh my gosh, I just forgot their Jake Moody seemed pretty confident. Jake Moody, totally fine that he just won the game for Michigan, beating them beating Illinois 19-17 in the Big House. Couple things to watch out for here. First of all, it is an injury thing. Obviously, if Blake Corum's injured and Donovan Edwards injured, what happens then? Definitely not a Michigan win. But this is my guess. AP is reporting, at least the one AP reporter is reporting, that Corum says that he's fine and he's expecting to play. Now, that's him himself saying that. We also are hearing conflicting things that one of Michigan's linemen is saying that they're not expecting Corum to play. So it could go either way. This game is in Columbus for the first time since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
None of these kids have played in this stadium. Capacity is 102,000. They're going to be closer to 107 most likely. For the game, it's going to be 44 and cloudy. That is going to be a wet 44 here in the Northeast / beginning of the Midwest in Columbus. It's going to be cold. It's going to be cloudy. The refs are going to have one or two blown calls in either direction. This is what's going to happen. The game's going to come down to a field goal. If it's Michigan, they're winning. If it's Ohio State, who knows? I'm taking Michigan plus the points. If Corum's healthy, I'm taking Michigan outright.
Oh.
If Corum's not healthy, I'm taking Michigan. I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm taking Michigan by 3.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. I will say, to your point, 107,000. This is Michigan's first true road test. And as you told me last week,
all of their true road. This is everybody on the team's first true road test. 2008.
And you can say what you want about Iowa. That's 60,000, whatever. Michigan, as you said last week when I said it's good for this team to face adversity against Illinois, you said it's a little late in the season. It's a little late in the season to have your first true road test. But as Harbaugh said, this team's grateful for the opportunity, so go out and rip it. Because that's what they're going to do. So I'm going to just close, I think, on this, Simeon.
What was he saying? You sent me a video that was great. Heisman habits.
Yes.
Listen, both of these teams have Heisman habits, both in C.J. Stroud and in Blake Corum. But the teams themselves have they both want this. They are both striving for this win. It's a road test. It's late in the season. Let's go blue.
Michigan, you go out. You're no longer scared of the team down south. You don't have to be. You smacked them in the mouth last year. This time they're prepared for it. So guess what? Just like Mike Tyson, you put on those gloves again and you go smack them in the mouth again. You go out there, you run the ball, you play your game, you play great defense, you run the ball, and JJ, you're going to have your breakout game this week. You go out and take what's yours. You go out and you connect with Andrell Anthony. Go out and take what's yours, boys. Go blue forever. Go Michigan. Beat the Buckeyes!
Hail to the victor.
Hail!
It's been the 4th and 1 podcast with us all. Anchor.fm/4th and 1, Instagram @4th and 1 podcast. We'll see you guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Wash your hands, you filthy animals.